There was a willow tree at the edge of the village, its long green tendrils brushing the quiet stream like fingers stroking forgotten melodies. No one planted it. No one could remember a time when it wasn't there. It had simply always been, bending with the breeze, swaying gently through the seasons like a soul too patient to be hurried.
People passed it daily. Children on bicycles, elders taking their morning walks, lovers on late afternoon strolls. They saw it, yes, but they didn't really see it. It was background, like the sky or the hills, or the humming of crickets at dusk.
All except for Mara. Mara came every Sunday, rain or sun, with a notebook tucked beneath her arm and a thermos of chamomile tea. She'd settle herself beneath the willow's sweeping arms and sit. Sometimes she wrote. Sometimes she said nothing at all, but always she listened. Because the willow whispered, not in words exactly, not the way humans speak, but in the rustle of its leaves, in the sway of its limbs, in the way the breeze wound through its branches and told stories without shape. Mara had listened to that voice since she was a child. Back then, it had soothed her when her parents argued in the house down the lane. Later, it had consoled her when her grandmother died, and again when her first love left without saying goodbye.
Threads of the past. The willow tree didn't speak of future things. It was not concerned with what would come next. Taxes, birthdays, deadlines, regrets. Its language was slower, older, rooted in moments that passed unnoticed by the world, but marked like carvings in bark. Mara, too, had begun to change. Her life, once so urgent, had grown quieter. She had once worked in the city, surrounded by noise and flashing lights and deadlines that buzzed like flies around her head. But it wore her down. The city asked for too much and gave too little. So she left. She returned to the village of her youth, thinking she would stay just for a while, a few months perhaps, to clear her mind. That had been 3 years ago. She lived now in her grandmother's old cottage, the one with the squeaky date and garden of thyme and lilac. She taught piano lessons to neighborhood children and helped organize the local book club. Life was simpler, unhurried. Some people might call it small, but to Mara, it finally felt spacious, roomy enough to breathe. Each Sunday, she came to the willow tree, and slowly, as if turning the pages of a long-forgotten journal, she began to understand what it had been whispering all along. The man with the dog. One morning, as Mara was packing her notebook and folding her blanket, she noticed a man approaching the tree. He was walking a golden retriever, its tongue lolling out with the satisfaction of a well-lived morning. The man paused, squinting up at the willow, then sat down on the bench nearby. He didn't speak at first, just nodded politely and poured water from a bottle into a small bowl for the dog. Mara hesitated, unsure whether to leave or stay. "Nice tree," the man finally said. Mara smiled. "It is. Old, too. Very." A moment of silence passed. The wind stirred the branches. The willow rustled like pages turning. "My name's Elliot," the man said. "Just moved here last month. Got tired of the city." Mara chuckled softly. "I know that feeling." From then on, Elliot became a quiet part of the tree's world. Not every Sunday, but often enough. Sometimes they spoke. Other times they didn't. The dog, whose name turned out to be Cassie, would lie with her head on Elliot's boot, eyes closed, tail thumping at odd intervals. The three of them became something like companions. Not friends in the fast way people call each other friends after one good conversation, but slow friends, like tea steeping or ivy growing across a stone wall.
The Willow knows. One particularly windy afternoon, Mara and Elliot sat beneath the willow as a storm gathered far on the horizon. The light had turned that strange shade of silver gray that comes before rain. "You ever feel like the tree knows things?" Elliot asked suddenly. Mara turned to him. "What kinds of things?" "I don't know. Like it's watching, but not in a creepy way. More like it's waiting for you to remember something." She looked up. The willow bowed toward her, as if in agreement. "I think," Mara said slowly, "it remembers for us when we forget." They were both quiet after that. Later, after the rain began to fall in thick, glistening strands, they stayed a little longer than usual beneath the willow's sheltering canopy. Neither of them moved. There was something sacred in the stillness. The storm passed, and the stream, swollen with new water, gurgled like a newborn.
The letter. One morning, Mara found an envelope tucked beneath her door. There was no name, just a short handwritten note. "If you ever wonder whether you're meant to stay, I think the tree already answered you. E." She read it once, then again, and again. Then she folded it and placed it inside her notebook, the one she always brought to the willow. Later that day, she walked to the tree alone. The branches welcomed her like old friends. The whisper was there, soft, gentle, undemanding. But this time, she didn't just listen. She spoke. "I think I'm home," she said aloud. The leaves rustled in response, and the breeze moved through her hair like a sigh of relief. Passing seasons. Seasons passed. The willow lost its leaves and grew them again. Snow draped its branches like shawls of silence, then melted into the roots below. Spring brought blossoms. Summer brought shade. The stream whispered alongside the tree, the two of them in ancient conversation. Mara's hair grew a little grayer. Elliot's visits became more frequent. Cassie grew older, her steps slower, her naps longer. They didn't need to say it, but they both knew this was it. Not the end, just the place where their paths would continue, slowly, quietly, together. One day, Elliot brought a small wooden sign. He gently hammered it into the ground near the tree. On it, he had burned a simple inscription.
"The listening tree." Mara laughed. "You made it official." "Seemed like the right thing to do," Elliot said, blushing slightly. "For you, for all the people who need to sit and breathe." And they did. People began coming more often, not in crowds, never in a way that disturbed the tree's peace, but in ones and twos. A teenager writing poetry, an old man in a wheelchair, a woman holding a grief too heavy for words. They came and sat and listened. Somehow, the tree made space for everyone.
The whisper within. Years later, Mara would still come to the willow. Even as her hands grew shaky, even as Elliot walked a little slower, they still returned, together. They didn't always speak now. There wasn't always a need. They had learned the language of silence. And on her last day, when the air was cool and the leaves had begun to fall again, Mara sat beneath the willow and closed her eyes. She could feel the whisper not just around her, but within her. not in words, just in stillness, in memory, in the way the heart slows when it's at peace. She smiled, and the willow tree, older now but just as patient, swayed gently in the breeze, whispering to the world, here is a place to rest.